Hello everyone, I'm Linda and welcome to Cottage and Crime Time. If you enjoy this video, please like it and subscribe. I will really appreciate it. If you have subscribed, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. So just a quick disclaimer, I'm not an expert. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research and form your own opinions. So today we are going to talk about Jermaine Phillips and Pieter Grinling, also known as the Bonnie and Clyde of South Africa. I have questions. How do these people meet each other and commit these crimes? So let's first talk about the timeline. Jermaine Phillips met Pieter Grinling on the 24th of December in 1981. He was the worst Christmas gift she could have ever hoped for. End quote from Fatal Females. From the beginning of the relationship, there was a fatal attraction. Peter became extremely jealous of Jermaine, and he even insisted on having his name tattooed on his stomach. In 1982, she had his son, Pietertjie. In June of 1983, Gerald Douglas Meyer would become the first victim of these two serial killers. Gerald was surfing by day, and he enjoyed the day surfing, and then he went to the bar. There he had the misfortune of meeting Pieter. They went for a drive, all four of them, including small Pietertjie, and at some point, Pieter and Gerald got out of the car to smoke dagga. And then the next moment, poor Gerald was shot by Pieter. They then drove to Richards Bay, and one day he arrived with a stranger, Vernon Alexander Swart, only 28 years old, and a case of beer. At the place they were staying at. They then said that they would give him a lift after that. They parked behind some trees, and then he ordered everyone out of the car. Jermaine tied Vernon to a tree, and then he was shot. I will get back to this because the sources differ from what happened exactly here. On Saturday, the 25th of June, the same pattern repeated itself in Almelo. Pieter again went to a bar, and then he brought a stranger with him. He told Jermaine to call him Boot. His full name was Barend Kruivenstein. They went to a friend of Pieter's, and there they watched rugby. After the game, they left, and he forced Barend out of the car. He demanded his PIN number, but Barend refused to give it to him, and he was shot. What is shocking about this is that they spent time with these people, and especially Boot. They watched a whole rugby game together at someone's house, at one of Pieter's friends' houses. Then the final victim was in Bloemfontein, and his name was Martin Mofosi. If I mispronounced that, I apologize. By then, the police had found the trail of bodies and photos, and they were even featured on the national TV show Police File. On the 15th of June 1983, the two were arrested at Vereniging. They then had this twisted love situation going on where Jermaine said that she was guilty, but she only did it because she was 18 at the time and she couldn't get the death penalty. They, however, both were convicted of the crimes, and Jermaine got 4 life sentences and Pieter was sentenced to death. Pieter then did something for Charmaine, and he then wrote in a letter that he was guilty of the murders so that she could get off of the crime and get released early. So the judge passed these two sentences, and it seemed like it would be final. Okay, so this is where things get very, very confusing. I have two book sources, and they differ completely about Charmaine's part in this whole situation. So I first wanted to give the timeline, and then I wanted to get back to what could have happened and what was said to have happened. So it might seem confusing, but just hear me out. Okay. So first I'm going to go off of the point that Charmaine was completely guilty and that she deserved to stay in jail for the time that she did. So first of all, she was hissing while the trial was going on. She yelled out profanities, and she really didn't present herself very well. When she got into jail, for 6 years, she was part of a gang. She even took a leadership role, and then she also spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. She, however, then turned around her life around, and she became a hairdresser. And after she left the prison, she would work in a salon. So obviously people had a lot to say about this. It is also said in this version that the second victim, Vernon, that she was the one who shot him and that she was fully participating in the killings and that she was doing it with Peter. So that is one version of events, and that is what most of the online sources and articles also suggests, that she was guilty of this spree killing and that she deserved to go to prison for life and not get out. The other version says that she was actually forced into it, that he told her that he would shoot her and the baby and her family if she doesn't participate. So in this version, she is forced to do it. And then in this version, it is also said that she didn't shoot Vernon herself. So in this case, Charmaine would then be considered a victim herself. The reason I don't agree with this is because of the way that she behaved at the trial and the first 6 years she was in jail. It doesn't make sense to me that she wasn't guilty of anything. Obviously, in a situation like this, you have to wonder if these people didn't meet, if this fatal attraction didn't happen, would things have been different, and would neither of them maybe commit murder? Or maybe just one of them. Again, how do these people meet each other and turn things into this? So I don't agree with the fact that she could be completely innocent and a victim, absolutely, because of the way she behaved, but not just that. There must have been a chance where she could have not participated. And then the other thing is, if you disagree with me there, if they were put in different rooms and they both knew that, okay, one of them is going to die and the other one is probably going to jail for life. She wanted to save him by pleading guilty herself and save him from the death penalty. What about Piteki in that scenario? Because in the sympathetic version of her, the source is saying how she had to drop him off as they made a run to verenigen, and it just paints her in this very, very sympathetic light. So in that scenario, wouldn't she have said that she was forced to do it? In this twisted love affair, she said that she did it, and then when he got sentenced to jail, he said he did it. So they must have had some kind of twisted relationship going on. So, in my opinion, she deserved to go to jail. If I'm wrong and she was a victim and forced to do all these things and scared of her son's and her family's life, obviously that would be a different scenario. But most of the sources said that she participated willingly and that she was a serial killer herself. She got out after 20 years, and obviously the families of the victims were very, very upset about this. When it comes to the victims, this was very frustrating. In this case, I couldn't find out anything about them. I'm sure that in the newspapers at the time, there were photos of them and there were more information about them. At this point, I only look at online sources and book sources that I can find. And there's a lot about the two of them and what they did and what their lives were like. And I will say a little more about Charmaine's life also. But it's frustrating because there's nothing about the victims except their names, Vernon's age, and the fact that Gerald was surfing and that they spent time with their killers, and that, they all were driven to a place and then they were shot. And it's really frustrating for me because I want to do this for the right reasons. And for me, that is to put attention, to remember the victims, and to do so in a respectful way for what they went through and how their lives were cut short. I just want to emphasize that they are real people. They left families behind, families that would have never forgotten them. And if the people are still alive, they still live with that wound and that grief. So I just want to apologize in a sense that I couldn't find on my own any more information. The archives on the internet doesn't go that far back, so I couldn't find out anymore. So that is a great shame. I do have to point out that Charmaine did have a difficult life, and I think that we also want to look for reasons. As I say in my videos repeatedly, I don't think we will ever really understand, and that no matter what someone's life was like, there's always other people that went through the same thing or even worse, and they didn't kill people and they didn't become criminals. So I'm not trying to say that Charmaine deserves sympathy, but I do think that she had a rough life. There's no denying that. Her mother was an alcoholic and her dad was a schizophrenic, and he was in and out of their lives. And she was in an orphanage for a bit, and then she was in foster care, and she ran away actually, and she became a woman of the night, and she made her money like that, and she had relationships, and she actually had another child that was also put in foster care. And there's a lot written about her life, but that's all I'm going to say about it, because I'm frustrated that I don't have anything to say about the victims. So she did have a tragic life, but like I said, there's other people that have it even worse than that, and they don't kill people. So I'm not making excuses, but that is what is said. On the other hand, Peter's mother said that, he was actually always sort of a good son and according to her, a good person, but she was his mother. So, but he didn't have those kind of circumstances growing up. The thing is, this is a fatal attraction situation. As with the Bloody Benders, if you didn't watch that video, please go and look. It's just, for me, I can't understand how these people meet. But then also, how does this come up in conversation? So that's why, in a certain sense, maybe Charmaine was forced. Maybe she was manipulated in doing it, but it still doesn't excuse her in any way. Peter Key, unfortunately, he also, when he was a teenager, became a prostitute and he died of AIDS. And just after Charmaine got out of prison, he died. So his life was very tragic, and in this, he was innocent, and I feel bad for him. For his parents, I don't think that justice was served completely, because I do think that Charmaine should have stayed in prison for her life. There were 4 victims, and she did get a sentence of 4 life sentences. So it doesn't make sense that she got out, and I feel really, really bad for the families that justice wasn't served. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope to see you next week. Goodbye and